Welcome to Beers and Banter. This is a Hobby Homies podcast where we, as the name suggests, dabble in a couple beverages, talk all things wargaming and or life. And all three of us, yes, yes, excellent. I'm Fox. I'm here with Shane.
What's going on?
And Moose.
G'day.
A new addition to the podcast. Now we're gonna talk to you, Moose, about all things Kings of War and all things Moose Moosington the Third. But first, Shane, you wanna say a couple things? You got some stuff going on.
Oh man, there's so much stuff going on. It's not me. I'm not doing anything. It's these other guys. But before we kick it off, I just wanted to quickly shout out Viv and the guys at Knights of Dice. They're putting together the 24-hour live streamed Painting for Life, Paint-a-thon. These guys are going to be hanging out on stream for 24 hours, just seeing how many minis they can paint. They're having a bunch of guests come in. Like they've got Ryan McNaught, who's one of the hosts from Lego Masters, Luke Fellows from Geek Gaming Scenics, who is a god among men in the terraining and diorama scene, and Queensland's own Lachlan Linton Keane from Zorpazorp. So, and they're having a bunch more too that are coming. So check out their Facebook page and their website, knightsofdice.com. And get around it. Like, just jump in. They're going to be talking about all things hobby as well throughout the 24 hours, which I think is just insane. So that's this Friday, starting 10 a.m., Friday the 24th of September, running until, you guessed it, 10 a.m., Saturday the 25th of December. So
there's prizes and giveaways and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, they're doing. So I believe it's every $10 you donate, you get a ticket and you go into the draw for all kinds of cool prizes. So
very sick.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, so check it out. So now, Moose, we know you quite well. Some would say probably too well.
Intimately.
Intimately, yes, indeed. Tell our listeners a bit about yourself, mate.
Oh, did you ask how work was?
No, I didn't. I specifically didn't.
We spoke pre-show. We were not going to mention the W word once. Outside of work,
fantastic. Hopefully, Gritty will get on and add some comments on that one.
He'll love it.
He loves the lawnmower shop.
This episode is just for Gritty, actually.
It is,
probably. Yeah. I think he's had like two now. One was about books, and now this one. So he's lucky.
But I don't know what to say about myself.
Well, how did you get into wargaming? Like, how many years have you been in it? What drew you in? And what does it look like for you now at the moment?
Okay, so my brother and I started collecting white dwarfs when we were in our teenage years in the 90s. And back then, they were actually like white dwarfs from the 80s that we were buying.
Oh, wow.
We were buying brand new.
Yeah. Is that because in the 90s it took 10 years for them to get here by boat?
Pretty much, yeah. So we were getting like 10-year-old white dwarfs, and we were just frothing it. We were like, these things are freaking amazing. And you couldn't really do anything. There was no Games Workshop in Australia back then. So we just go to hobby stores and order stuff in from overseas.
Wow.
Yeah.
Slowly sort of built up a bit of Warhammer Fantasy and a bit of 40K stuff and Blood Bowl, the second edition Blood Bowl. But then we both sort of got into our 20s and went away from it and forgot about it. And then I was married a couple of times, had a lot of kids, and played lots of sports over the years. And when I finally retired from playing sports, I needed a hobby to keep myself sane.
Yeah.
And some stuff was flicking up on Facebook from like heavy metal painters and all that sort of stuff kept coming into my feed. So I started following some of the Facebook groups and then got all my stuff out of storage, which I still had 20 odd years later.
Oh, that's so good.
And got back into it and pretty much gone bankrupt.
Yeah, fair enough. You're not.
I think we're all in
wargaming
crippling debt.
One part of my house is just warehousing for plastic crack.
Yeah, that's good. I have to get a whole separate storage unit and hide it from my wife. So I mean, I appreciate. You mean you're not the crippling debt can't be too much if you've got a whole room of it. My house is one whole room, so you're doing okay.
It's cheaper in Queensland. Well, it has been for a little while anyway.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I did froth that. Wait, whereabouts in Are you on? You're not on the sunny coast. You're.
No, I'm in the Redlands, so southeast on the bay
Yep.
side.
Yep. That's right. That's why you go for that horrible team. What is that? The gridiron team there.
Bayside Ravens.
Something
I
Ravens.
played for them for 7
some
years
garbage.
as well. So
How many years?
7.
Wow, far out. So your knees are gone.
Well, most of my body is gone. Play offensive line for 7 years for.
Oh. That's like living for 100 years. And that's a number.
My body's broken. I can't even hold the paintbrush anymore.
You know what? That explains a lot. No, that's a lie. You're a terrific painter.
That is a terrible lie, dude. What the fuck?
You're actually on Games Workshop's website because of your
great uncleaned one.
Yeah.
Although
that was a fluke, but yeah.
It was originally called the Unclean One, but then they saw your version and they're like, we got to rename this bitch. Listen, you played in a Kings of War tournament on the weekend.
I did.
The previous weekend to this. We actually put Kings of War on our game that we'll never play, I believe. I believe.
That's why I went to play.
Bruce wasn't a fan. He was not a fan.
You know what? Kings of War is a rank and flank, and I don't know enough about it. I'm not in the universe. I've got some ships from Mantic Armada. So I want to know how you would explain the Kings of War. Like, what drew you in? How would you explain Kings of War to someone like us who really have no idea?
No, not the slightest.
Oh, look, the main thing that sort of sucked me into it was the aesthetics of it, really. The main thing that they do that's differently to everyone else is they create these really scenic and thematic multi-bases where they will have, they're a square or a rectangle base, and they will glue a bunch of the minis on there as a regiment or a troop or whatever. And like they will make it to whatever, like mine are going to be lava bases. So it's going to be a bunch of crazy dwarves jumping over different parts of lava to attack whoever is in front of them. There's snow bases. There's you can do whatever you want. Like I saw one guy that actually made like an undead army, and he had like cathedrals and stuff like that together on the different bases, and he could actually push all of the bases together, and it look like a big terrain set. Like a diorama. It was insane, So
that is awesome.
It is cool. You can do whatever your mind can come up with. You can put it into the basing. So really, the aesthetics is what drew me in. But I kind of fell into it by accident playing the game recently because there was a gaming club in Brisbane called Springfield Gamers, and they said, "Look, we're looking for an extra person to play Kings of War for the Helpy's Rift campaign." Which is a global campaign that's actually shaping the way the lore is going to change for the next edition, and the stories that they write about it for their lore, that actually shapes it. So the games that you play for this campaign shapes the lore.
That's incredible. To feel like your tabletop games have an impact in the actual universe.
So how the wins and losses, the different factions all have against each other, that changes how the story goes. So they said, "Look, we see that you've been interested in it before. Do you want to come play a game?" I was like, "I've never played before, but hey, why not?" So I went and played that game, borrowed an army to go and play that game, and then he said, "Look, a couple of weeks' time we're having a tournament. Do you want to play some more games?" And I was like, why not?
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you just had a tournament. So can you tell us what a typical turn looks like in Kings of War? We're all pretty familiar with how 40k and Necromunda and all that play, but like what's it look like in Kings of War?
With Kings of War, they only have 3 parts to a turn. So they have movement, shooting, and combat. So in your movement phase, you move all of your stuff forward to wherever you want it to be, including any charges that you want to do. And then there's also some other special rules that you do within movement phases as well. Shooting phase, you basically shoot anything that's in your line of sight. And the good thing about them is it's not like in 40k or Kill Team where you go, well, I can see his antenna from around there, so I can shoot at him. They have all of the different troop types have heights. So if you're a height 2 and the person that you're trying to shoot over there is a height 2, you can't see them through your own line of troops.
Yeah.
But if you can see, if they're a height 4, then they're taller than your own guys in front of you. You can see them.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. So whatever size the terrain is, if it's taller than what the troop type is, you can't see them. If they're
Yeah.
taller than the terrain, you can see them and shoot at them. So
So
it
that
just
allows like
simplifies things.
yes, that allows the freedom of basing where you know like you don't have to worry about how high the base is as to giving yourself a penalty. You can model these miniatures in an incredible way, and still have that cover. That's cool. I like
There's
that.
no modelling to advantage or anything
Yeah,
like
or
that.
disadvantage sometimes.
It's right.
Yeah,
It's all on the rules. So basically,
nice.
you can make something that's 6 inches high or something like that.
Yep.
But it's still only a height 2. Like
Yep.
there was a guy that had this. It was a ratkin army, but he'd used a big Skaven model, and he was sitting on a column that was about that high, and then the miniature on top of it was about that high.
Wow.
But its height was probably only height 6, so
Yep.
it didn't matter. Like it was humongous, this miniature, but it was just because it was cool. The only thing that you have to have is the base size has to be whatever it says in the rule book.
Yeah.
Which is based on sort of how many people can flank it and attack it and stuff like that.
It's funny, the more you talk about how this game is like the scenics that go into it and how the modeling side of it doesn't affect the actual gameplay. I think that this game is built for Shane in the sense that the second Shane gets a base bigger than 32 mil, he just goes, oh man, the things I could do with this.
It's a blank canvas.
Yeah, you get a night base and you're like, I can make a trench.
For so long with 40k and Kill Team and even AOS, I never thought that I would like square bases. Like I even threw out all my old fantasy bases that were square because I was like, I'm never needing these again.
Exactly.
With the bases that they use in Kings of War, the whole idea of the square and the rectangle bases is so awesome. Like you can fit so much more stuff on them, but just the way that they maneuver and stuff. So when you're attacking each other, you know, it's like your base, and you pull your other squad up against them to charge them or whatever. It's just it makes more sense. You couldn't do it with round bases; it wouldn't work. But basically the three phases: movement, shooting, and combat. And the other good thing about that is that you don't have a certain amount of wounds. So, it's that you have nerve. So it's your morale basically.
Mm-hmm.
So say for example, you could put 20 wounds on a model, but they don't die until you actually make them roll to fail their nerve.
Okay.
So they'll have, say, for example, a unit of Dwarf Ironclad, I think, was 16/18. So that means that if they get 16, which is the wounds plus whatever the opponent rolls, they're what's called wavered, so they can't do anything for a turn. But if you get 18 or more, then they die. You take them off the table. But until you roll that nerve and they fail that nerve, they stay on the table. So if he keeps rolling bad, and a double one is always a fail, if he rolls a double one on your nerve, nothing happens to you. So So some of my regiments that I had on the table on Sunday, they were just rolling badly, and these guys just kept copping wounds and just staying there.
Wow.
It just clogs up the table because they can't get through. Yeah. They can't get rid of this regiment out of the way, and you know, it's just frustrating for them. So,
so your opponent rolls the nerve test for you.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So
they put the wounds on you, and then they roll for your nerve to see if they either waver you, which basically stuns you, or they remove you from the table. Yeah. So.
Which is how they avoid taking off single models off your little base, and that's why you can make your diorama and not worry about, because it's either the whole base gets removed or nothing.
Yeah. And the more you have on that base, because they have different sizes. So troop is like 5 to 10, and then regiments are usually around sort of 20, and then a horde is like 40 models.
Wow.
The bigger they are.
Couldn't imagine that.
Well, you don't. So, but they work on a 75% scale too. So if you've got a troop, you would only put 7 on the base. And instead of 20 for a regiment, you only put 15 on the base.
Yeah,
right.
You don't have to put the whole amount on the base. You only have to have 75% on the base.
But so that's like a minimum threshold
to make it, and also it leaves you room to make more models. So
they're
not like GW. They say you have to have 10 because it costs $100 to buy 10.
Yeah.
to be able to make more troops and more regiments from the, it saves you money.
That's cool.
But the bigger your size, the more nerve you have. So a troop might only have sort of 12 nerve. A regiment might have 16, but a horde's going to have like 26. So you can take more wounds before your nerve takes you off the table. So it pays to have some bigger bases in the game.
That is awesome. That reminds me kind of like quickly Flames of War. It has multi-basing, in squads of troops. It might only be 5 guys on the one base or 4 guys on the one base, but the fact that they all get to fight, even though they've taken damage, they're all still fighting until the final wound comes off, So the ability for that, like your 40 horde just keeps getting to fight until it finally...
That's right. It gets 25 attacks each turn, regardless until you wipe it off the table.
It's not getting whittled down like it would if you were picking up 1 or 2 models here and there.
Exactly.
So,
and the other thing
that's cool.
I like that's simplified about it as well is they don't have you roll to hit, you roll to wound, all of that sort of stuff, saves and all that sort of stuff. It's more simplified. So you've got your stats. There's only about 6 stats, and you've got your range stat or your melee stat. So whatever you've got to roll to shoot or whatever you've got to roll to in close combat.
Yep.
And you've got a defense stat. So if I go in and I attack him, it says my melee is 4. I roll 4, 5, 6. I hit him. And then what his defense is, so he's got a defense of 5. I've got to roll a 5 or a 6 to wound him.
Yeah, okay.
There's no hits and wounds and saves and all that sort of stuff. If I roll on 4+ and I hit him, and then I roll 5+ and I wound him, that's it. He takes those wounds.
Oh, nice.
Simple as that. So you could just roll your 25 dice for your horde, and you put on 17 wounds or something. And then you roll the nerve, and you can take him off the table in 1 turn, or you might only get 3 wounds, and then he sits there for another 3 turns.
Well, so did the wounds, like if you, I'm just trying to map it out in my head. If you attack with Unit A into them and only do 4 wounds, does that sort of stay on them, and then you can attack with the next unit and add to that total?
The wounds never come off unless you've got magic that can heal wounds, or like one of the guys I played against had werewolves and they had like regeneration, and I think one of the other team had trolls and they had regeneration as well. So like they were getting a certain amount of wounds back per turn, but as a general rule, once you put the wounds on them, you just keep putting more wounds on them, and obviously the higher the wounds you get, the less you have to roll on nerve to get them off the table. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, cool.
Just don't roll a double 1 and they go.
Yeah. That would be. I would love. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Especially
it's actually a really fun game. It's long, probably longer because I had only played 1 game before I went into a tournament. But most of the other guys didn't seem to wrap up much quicker than my games did. So it's still a couple of hours to play a game. We played 2,300 points, which I think is pretty common for Kings of War.
Sure.
But yeah, still probably 2 hours a game.
Okay,
Nice.
I was gonna ask. Would you say it's closer to 2 or closer to 3 hours for setup and the full game and done?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. So probably first game, we started setting up about 10 past 9, and we probably finished about 10 to 12. But that was for my first game and getting my head around it. But probably one of the longest steps is setting the game up in the first place, because you've got so many things, and it's I drop, you drop,
alternate deployment.
Alternate drop, that's right. And you're also trying to be kind of strategic with how you do it. You're watching what he's dropping, same as I suppose you would with 40k. So like for example, I had cavalry. Dwarves have what's called Brock riders, so they ride on giant badgers, which is just
that's
incredible. He had a unit of goblins which had like long spears, which does extra damage to cavalry. So I was like, right, where's he going to put them down? And I'll put my Brock riders on the other side so that they come up against something that's not going to do double damage to them.
Totally. Yeah, cool. I like that tension with deployment being one of the main cruxes of the game, because once you get into it, I guess the rest is pretty known, because you can sort of look That's on the left flank. That's on the right. That's in the middle.
Yeah.
Those things are going to war, you know?
The main mechanics are fairly simple. It's not too complicated. It's pretty easy to get your head around. There is a lot of strategy involved in which I got my ass handed to me in every game pretty much because I was learning the strategies.
Yeah.
And the main thing that kept messing me up was with Kings of War, if you get attacked front on, you do whatever your normal attacks are.
Sure.
If you get flanked, which means they come into the side, they get double the amount of attacks.
Ooh, that's brutal.
They attack you from the rear, they get triple the amount of attacks.
No one wants to get attacked from the rear.
The rear is best, everyone knows.
What I've heard about Fox, but for sure, like you've got to be careful where you put your base. You've got to be aware of what their charging distances, stuff like that. And I kept going, I'm just going to move down here, and eventually I'm going to get to this guy, and then the guy would come in from the side and he would double attack me, and then another one would come in from the rear and just decimate me, and I was like, wow. I kept sort of doing it to myself, and I was kind of slowly learning each time not to do it, but it got less bad as we went through the day. But yeah, there's a lot of strategy involved in that. You've got to know where you can be to preserve your guys long enough to get to the objectives you want to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Moose and getting decimated in the rear. Name a more iconic duo. I'll wait. Hey.
So...
you go, Shane. You go.
No. I was just going to ask. So, Moose, you mentioned that you borrowed an army for this tournament. What army did you use?
Dwarves.
Yep. And
riding the badges.
Oh, of course, you did say that. Yeah. So, what does the dwarf army consist of? Does it have infantry, cavalry, and then artillery or vehicles or big beasts or what?
Yes.
Paint a picture for me.
For the first game, I completely borrowed an army, which I suppose it's like any other sort of army. So dwarves have a few different types of troops. They've got ironclad, iron guard, shield breakers, stuff like that. So the difference really between them is just the attack and the defense stats. Really.
Yeah.
And then they've got Brock Riders, which are the cavalry, and they're actually berserkers, which is essentially, remember the old troll slayers?
Yeah.
Like shirtless, and they got mohawks, and they're
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So the berserkers ride the Brocks, and then you can also have berserkers on foot as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they're pretty good fighters, and they've got quite a good nerve as well. They don't waver. You can't waver them. You can only kill them. So
okay.
Yeah. So that's quite good. You've also got riflemen, which aren't very good. They're called Iron Watch rifles, and the crossbows are a little bit better, but their shooting guys aren't great. They've got some elite shooters called sharpshooters, which are pretty good. But you only get a unit of 5. That's all you can get for them, and they're really expensive. But they're quite good.
Okay, so you got to sit typical snipers. You got to sit them back. Hopefully, no one even touches them because
they've got good range. They've got 36-inch range.
Sure,
and they have my range like cannons, organ guns, and some sort of flamethrower thing. They've got. I think I've got one in the cupboard actually in my pile.
Doesn't surprise me.
I didn't get to use one. I didn't use one. They also have a war machine called a Steel Behemoth, which I actually built one that I had to use in the tournament. So I only borrowed sort of 3/4 of the army for the tournament. I built myself a Steel Behemoth. And one of the other cool things about the dwarves in Kings of War is they have access to earth elementals, which are great big rock golem type guys.
Yeah.
Sweet.
And so they have a greater earth elemental, which is like this massive, big King Kong looking rock golem. And they have a regiment of earth elementals, which are a little bit smaller. They're still pretty big. So you get a unit of 3 of those. So he had a greater earth elemental. I borrowed that off him. And then I built up my own regiment of 3 earth elementals. They hit hard. They're great. Slow, but really, really good. So they were probably my MVPs. The Steel Behemoth was pretty good, but kept getting targeted and shot off the board. So
Fair enough.
The first game I played against an army that didn't have any shooting at all. It was all close combat. So the steel behemoth just ran right and like did some major damage. But the other two games that I played had heaps of like shooting, and it just got shot to shit.
And they saw that thing, and they were like, "Well, I'm taking that down
small,
first."
You can't hide it either. So
Yeah.
if you've got range, you can shoot it.
Yeah, yeah, far out. I love that model because I saw it once on. I didn't know it was Kings of War. In fact, I didn't know what game it belonged to until you posted in our Discord, like you building and painting it. And I was like, "Oh, that's that model I saw on." It was like maybe Kenny Boucher or someone grabbed one and painted it with Army Painter Metallics or whatever. And it looked fine. Yours looks better, obviously, Moose. But I've loved that model.
More dynamic pose. I don't really like static poses, as you're probably aware.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we are aware. Yeah. You do not buy something from a box, build it that way, and then paint it.
Unless it's monopose and you've got no choice. Sometimes I'll hack it up a bit and try.
You'll find a way.
But the cool thing about the behemoth is it stomps the crap out of people, but it's also got a 12-inch flamethrower as well. So and it can move and shoot. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
that is cool.
Pretty tough.
So do you think you'll keep trying to do this thing where you sort of like build and paint a few of your own dwarfs and try and borrow a dwarf army and figure out what works well? And then maybe you go, all right, that unit worked well, so I'll buy that. Is that your plan, to build a dwarf army and get a bit more into it?
To be honest, I've got enough in the cupboard already to make a dwarf.
Okay, excellent.
I've got all my old Warhammer Fantasy dwarves that I had once upon a time that I've stripped and got ready to paint and multi-base. I've got the elementals and the steel behemoth already. I think I've got a great earth elemental in there as well. I probably wouldn't need to buy too much.
Yeah.
I've got Brock Riders as well. So
how does that community go in terms of like proxying and bringing stuff from other systems?
War, look, you can use whatever you want. Like the Ratkin army I played against was all Skaven models. You know, I don't think there was a man.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I played a Goblin army, and I'm pretty sure they were all, other than the War Machines, I think all of the Goblin miniatures were all Warhammer. The Trolls were clearly something else. I didn't recognize them.
Right.
But yeah, like, they don't care. They just want you to play games. And even the guy, Ronnie Renton, who's the owner and the founder of Mantic, he's all about proxying. He just wants people to play games. Like,
that's awesome.
The games are kind of designed around using whatever you want. They just want you to play games. Of course, it'd be cool if you use their stuff.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. They don't care. They just want, as long as you're using their rules, they don't care what you use.
Yeah.
It's sort of
That's
like
awesome.
It's an organic thing that happens when you play a game that you love. You inherently want to support the creators of that. So you go, all right, maybe my full Ratkin army that's all Skaven is sweet and it's gotten me this far, but I love this game so much.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going to throw a couple coins Mantic's way.
And the good thing about Mantic is that their newer stuff just gets better and better all the time. They got some incredible sculptors doing some stuff there for the newer armies and the newer updates of their armies, and some of them are amazing.
Yeah, their Armada stuff looks phenomenal. Like to some of the ships that I've got, like I've even got a couple of goblins on the Maw Beasts, which I haven't even like built yet, but they're sweet looking little models. You know, they're awesome.
I'm sneaking away to grab an Armada model. It's right next to me, so I might as well.
But like you even look at some of the new Ratkin models that have come out, they look amazing.
Yeah.
They're ogres. They recently did an ogre army. Oh man, that stuff looks amazing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like
you
know what I'm like. I love everything. I can't help myself, but
this adorable little boat,
and that's
the little battleship. Yeah.
Yes.
And then this big old boy.
Big chunky boy. Yeah.
For people listening to the audio, they got no idea what's going on.
Nah. Hey, at least you're holding it still compared to me fucking last week.
You're like, check out this boat, man. Like, look at the detail.
I like how Fox just says, hey, look at this little guy, and then Shaaz says, look at this chunky boy.
Here's an accurate. Here's Shane. Here's Fox, and here's Shane. That's what I've named the ships for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Kings of War is very fun. You can use whatever you want as long as you get the base sizes right. And, like I don't know that they probably even really care about the rules, but obviously you're playing that game, you need to use their rules.
Yeah.
What I found mainly is the community is amazing, like very welcoming. The guys that I played against in the tournament were pretty much teaching me how to play while I was playing. Of course,
Yeah.
they mopped the floor with me, but
Yeah.
especially
They were teaching you poorly.
Yeah, they were teaching me well, but
Yeah.
like I still
Yeah.
made mistakes and got decimated. But like even the last game I played, the guy was kind of saying, "Do you really want to do that? Because if you do that, then I can do this, and then
Yeah.
maybe you want to rethink that." He was
Yeah.
great because I still like lost badly to him, but he helped me make less poor decisions.
Yeah. That's good. That's what you want in an opponent too. You don't want someone just to take advantage, of poor innocent Moose, who's new to this scene, and just get you want to feel good about losing. Reminds me of my 40K tournament.
He said, "Look, we want you to enjoy yourself because we want you to come back."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You've wiped the floor with you, then you'd be like, "Fuck this! I'm not going to come here and get like shit on every time."
That's right. I've just played a few games. I've got my ass handed to me each time. This sucks.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Not like you get the neckbeards in 40K who just are all about decimating you and then making you feel really bad about.
Yeah. So, Moose, we're getting to the pointy end. Before we have to wrap up quickly, what do you like about the game, like the most? Like what Kings of War? What calls to you?
I like a lot. I like that you can use pretty much anything you want for those armies. You can 3D print. You can use from different companies. You can do whatever you want, so as long as it sort of fits the basic sort of rule set.
Yeah.
And obviously you need to know what it is. I like that it's very simple to play. Like the basic mechanics are very, very easy. And the fact that, when you're moving a squad, you just move one. You don't have to move 10 individual guys and keep them in coherency and all that sort of rubbish. You just move it forward. And like you said, you just... You play it until that one's dead, and then you remove the whole thing. You don't have to.
I like that. That sounds good.
It's got full wounds and it's got full attacks until you remove it from the table.
Yeah, it's got none.
Yeah.
If I may be so bold as to assume, it sounds like I feel like everything we know about you, Moose. You're a modeler, a painter. You love customizing. Even your Death Guard, you'll grab a simple troop and make it look fucking awesome through your kit bashes. So this game where it's more about the hobby aspect of it, and then when you go to throw dice, it's nice and simple and quick and intuitive. That sounds like maybe that's why it's your style of game, because it's more about the hobby side of it, and then the game. It's not secondary to it. It's just an enjoyable part of it, but it's not convoluted.
No, that's right.
Yeah,
and I think that also everything that Mantic does, they just create great communities. I haven't come across, not that I haven't been in person with a lot of the communities, but I've spent a lot of time online in different Mantic communities, and they all seem very similar to what I've come across in these guys at Springfield Gamers. Like, they're welcoming, they want to teach you, they want you to enjoy yourself. They're not all about crushing you into dust. They want everyone to enjoy themselves playing the games. And I think that part of the simplified rule sets of those games it must sort of attract those sorts of people that just want to have fun. But definitely, I think you're right. I think you hit the nail on the head. That's got a high aspect of modeling and low amount of rules. And, that way I can be creative, but also I'm, not the smartest... not the sharpest tool in the shed, so I don't have to think too much.
It's less about net listing and the competitive aspect of it, and it's more about the hobby.
And I'm sure you could make it super competitive if you wanted to. There'd be lots of different things you could throw a list, and like I said, it's quite strategic with how you play. But if you
not like
if you just want to play a game, I think you can just throw some stuff on the table and still have a good time.
Mad.
That's what you want, I think. Yeah.
Look,
That sounds good.
Moose, it's been an absolute blast having you. This has been our second official guest.
Yeah.
And we couldn't have picked a more important person to the podcast than you. Like, you've been there from the start. You've been an instrumental person in the Discord. We love you, to be honest, Moose. We absolutely adore you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we've loved having you. This won't be the last time. This will just be the last time we don't ask you about work. Because let's be honest, we don't have time for that. Churchy would look at the episode runtime of 3 hours and be like, I'm not editing that.
Yeah.
And also, there'd be no hobby talk at all.
yeah. What is hobby when you can talk about mowers? I mean, come on. They would have 2 listens and it would be Gridlock listening twice. We appreciate your time. We thank you so much for jumping on. And
Thank you, Moose.
if you get a chance, maybe let's jump in the hobby hangout, something we do here every Tuesday when people aren't doing other things. And we'll catch you on the next Beers and Banter.
True.
We've ran out of beers.
Yep.
But we haven't run out of banter. So thank you so much. I've been Fox.
I've been Shane.
I've been Moose.
Hey! He's a natural.
That's it.
You can replace Shane. That's fine.
Oh.
Toodles.
Hooroo.